Hey folks, this is a little tutorial on how to do classical conditioning. This is designed for a refresher if you need it, but it's mostly designed for students who missed the first day of conditioning practice, so you guys don't get behind. So, classical conditioning was discovered by this man right here, Ivan Pavlov, in 1901. He was a Russian biologist who was studying the digestive system, and he was using dogs to do it, and he was measuring their salivation when he came across the startling discovery that dogs salivated at the sound of footsteps. You might be tempted to say that the dogs knew they were going to get fed, but that would be inaccurate because to know something means you have to have a higher order learning, such as sequential ordering, where A leads to B, B leads to C. Dogs aren't intelligent enough to have sequential ordering, but they are intelligent enough to associate, and that is the buzzword for classical conditioning. If you can tell something is an association, then you know it's classical conditioning. So this is the conditioning formula. You will have to work it and understand it for the test. So to start off with, uh, UCS means unconditional stimulus. This arrow means gives. UCR means unconditional response. So the unconditional stimulus gives the unconditional response. So say that I see you and I blow pepper in your face and you sneeze. So the unconditioned stimulus would be pepper. It gives sneezing. The unconditional response would be sneezing. This dot 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 means between sessions. So the unconditioned stimulus, pepper, is paired, the slash means paired, with the conditioned stimulus. The conditioned stimulus, it's unnatural because it's trained. So the conditioned stimulus in this example would be me, okay? So the conditioned stimulus, is paired with the conditioned stimulus of sneezing. This gives the unconditioned response paired with the conditioned response. These two are always going to be the same because that's the whole purpose of this formula, is to take a natural response, train it so it becomes an unnatural response. So you're turning the UCR into the CR, so they're always going to be the same. Dot, 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 again, means between sessions. So here we have the conditioned stimulus giving the conditioned response. So the conditioned stimulus, if you remember from here, is Mr. Braun, gives the CR, which is the same as the UCR. We'd already said the UCR is sneezing, so the CR is sneezing. So this CR is sneezing. So Mr. Braun gives sneezing. So let's work the whole thing out. Pepper gives sneezing. The pepper is paired with Mr. Braun because remember, every time you see me, I blow pepper in your face. This gives sneezing, and when the conditioning is completed, the CR becomes sneezing. So you wind up with Mr. Braun giving sneezing. So in other words, every time you see me in the hall, whether I blow pepper at you or not, you're going to sneeze. So the first part you have to keep in mind is always natural. It's always natural. So its natural stimulus gives a natural response. By the way, this is also important. The stimulus always gives the response. Make sure you don't get that backwards, because if you get that backwards, that would make no sense. So if we got this backwards, we would have sneezing gives pepper. That's not correct. Remember, the stimulus gives the response. So pepper gives sneezing. The back part here is the unnatural part because it's now been trained. So a trained stimulus is giving a trained response. So this is unnatural, this is natural. That might help with this formula. Also, this is very important to remember, that these two are always going to be the same. They're always going to be the same. Because remember, the purpose of the formula is to take a natural response, train it so it becomes unnatural. So take an unconditioned response and condition it. So once you identify one of these, if you identify the UCR or the CR, go to here and fill both of them in. Because remember, they're always going to be the same. So here is your first competency practice. We worked this in class. The underlined words are the variables, okay? To answer this, you must first start off with writing out the formula in its entirety. Then underneath it, you must put the variables. So I'll pause the presentation and work competency practice out number 1. Remember, it has to be in this format or it won't be right. So write out the conditioning formula, and yes, that means you'll eventually have to memorize it, and then underneath it, plug in the variables. All right? So pause it, work it. When you get a chance, and when you're done, I'll show you the answer. Okay, so hopefully you have the answer now, and here it is. Food gives drool. ... means between sessions. The food is paired with the footsteps, which gives drool, which will eventually become the conditioned response of drool. Remember, they're always the same. ... between sessions, so you wind up with footsteps gives drool. This is what your answer would have to look like in order to get full credit. So remember, start off with what is natural and you wind up with what is unnatural. The unnatural part goes here, the natural part goes here. This part is the actual conditioning. So here's a little trick for you. Sometimes you might get stuck and it might be easier to work backwards. So here's a little trick. Sometimes it's easier to say, all right, I know what I want to wind up with. And in this example, we know we want to wind up with footsteps giving drool. So we have identified the CS and the CR. Where else do we have a CS? Right here. So go fill in the CS. We also identified the CR, drool. So go in and identify the CR here too, drool. Now, once you do this, you automatically know what the UCR is, drool. Remember, they're always the same, so we have drool, drool. Where else is another UCR? Right here. So go in and fill in drool. And here's the kicker. Now, ask yourself one question. What would naturally give this response? What would naturally give this? Well, food would naturally give it. So now you have the UCS, plug it in here. Here's the remaining variable, plug it in there. Now you have the complete formula and the complete answer. I hope that helped. Good luck.